Okay, so Jordan, is the screen going to be in speaker view?
So that's something that you can adjust on your personal setting.
All right. Um, okay, so I just realized my speaker was not on. Can you hear me? We're
Yes.
good? Okay,
Yes.
Bernie. Okay, excellent. So we have a number of folks who are here. I'd like to start our community forum on policing in Wayland. So this forum came about as a result of the Wayland Police Chief search. Last year, our sitting police chief announced his retirement. And so we started a police chief search about a year ago. So and going through the process, it became apparent that there was a both a desire and I think really a need to receive community feedback on the police chief search. Simultaneously, the town was going through the process of creating a human rights, diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And I created a working group, which helped me with respect to the charge for that committee. Part of that working group was interested in policing in Wayland. And so that working group came up with the idea of a policing survey with respect to policing in Wayland. And following their work, we did put together a survey. So the purpose of our meeting today is to share with you, one, the survey results, and then to receive feedback from the community and to receive both comments and questions from the community regarding policing in Wayland. Jordan Remy works in my office, and he worked on putting together the community survey, and he has collected the data and will present that data. Bernie Lynch is indicated as host on my screen, and he is with Community Paradigm Associates. So Bernie works with Community Paradigm. He is a former city manager who now helps communities with management of various issues, including policing issues. And he graciously agreed today to be the moderator for our forum. So at this point in time, I will turn it over to either Bernie or Jordan for more introductory remarks and then a presentation of the survey findings.
Sure. Well, why don't I, if I could, I'll jump in here because I'm anxious to hear Jordan's presentation, but I will just talk a little bit about what we're hoping to accomplish tonight, and then I'll turn it over to Jordan. As Louise has indicated, the purpose is to gain your feedback, the community members' feedback regarding policing, and to a large extent what the town should be looking for as it searches for its next police chief. Community Paradigm provides a variety of services to municipalities, but one of those services is working with communities to help them find people for certain positions. Police chiefs, I just got off a Zoom call just a few minutes ago with a town that's doing a fire chief search. We do town manager, town administrator, public works director. Some of those positions don't necessarily require, if you will, quite a bit of community input. But we think that, certainly very visible positions like the manager positions, the town administrator positions, the police chief positions are such that community engagement, community thoughts, and feedback is a very important part of the process. These are very public-facing parts of local government, and it's important that we understand, the town understand, what's important to the citizens of the community so that they can play a role in identifying the type of person that would fill these types of positions and what the agenda should be for the community moving forward in those policy or functional areas. So I'm hoping I have about 7 questions tonight that I'm hoping to get to sort of delve into the your thoughts regarding policing. But I will turn it over to Jordan at this point to make a presentation, his presentation on exactly what the citizens of Wayland have already said regarding policing as a result of that survey. So Jordan.
Thank you, Bernie. So I'm going to pull up the results of the police department survey. So this is the survey that we had up and advertised on the website, and that we also had on Facebook, as well as some of our local media outlets. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So as Louise explained, we created this survey in order to gauge whether or not, how the community interacts with the police department and whether they're addressing the issues that everybody is most concerned with. And the information is also going to help us during the police chief search process, help with interview questions, and also improve the overall management of the department. We received a total of 223 responses. We had this posted for just over 2 months, from September 3rd to and closed on November 8th. So generally the feedback was overall very positive for the Wayland Police Department. Most residents believe that the Wayland Police Department works with community members to solve local problems. Almost 35% said to a great extent, and about 28% said they did a lot. They also believed almost 29% to a great extent worked with the community to address local problems and reduce crime in and of itself. About 27% also responded that they did a lot. And again, I think overall the satisfaction is that the Wayland Police Department is addressing the issues that are of most concern. About 33% to a great extent. About 28% believe they did a lot. One area for improvement that we saw, we feel like residents believe that they did not receive enough communication from the Wayland Police Department. About 30% believe that communication was only somewhat, they received a good amount of communication from the Wayland Police Department. We also did include a comment box to allow respondents to provide open-ended input into how the Wayland Police Department can improve communication. Some of the most common open-ended responses that we received included periodic updates on police activity and the department's concerns about the community. They would like to see regular emails and posts on their Facebook page. And they would also like to see more opportunities for the community to interact with the department. There were a few comments regarding what crimes and what sort of activity the police are regularly involved in. There were some questions regarding where they can find the police log. The police log is updated monthly on their website at the link below. This presentation is also currently up on the town's Facebook page, so you can click the links and you can follow along at home after the presentation is over. And similar to the results presented earlier, most people are satisfied overall with the performance of the Wayland Police Department. 43% to a great extent, about 30% said a lot. So overall, the general satisfaction with the police department is very high. Most people feel very safe in the town of Wayland. communities in the Boston area. I think that the answer to this question is it's very similar to question 6. I think most people feel very safe, and over the past 15 months, they have generally felt very safe overall. Most people feel safe calling the Wayland Police Department if they did need help. But we did also allow the opportunity for respondents to explain why they wouldn't call the police department. Most of the results dealt with either having a negative experience with the police department in the past or expressed general distrust with police overall. About 78% of respondents have had an encounter with a Wayland police officer. Encounters involve anything from a traffic stop to a discussion at a community event, or getting any sort of assistance investigating a crime or some of the items that are listed. We also did include an open-ended comment response on other ways that they've interacted with our police department, and the issues include assisting with something unrelated to a crime. They had a casual discussion around town, or they may have had an interaction at a community event. Most overall gave a very good feedback for the professionalism of our police officers. Almost 87% said that they've had a very positive experience with our police department, with only a few saying that they did not believe the department was very professional. Most believe that Wayland Police Department treats all people fairly and equally. 46% to a great extent believed so, and about 30% said they did a lot. So this was an interesting feedback. Select the 5 most important issues that you think affect the town of Wayland. So the top issues are listed here. Most believe traffic concerns, speeding and parking were the #1 problem, followed by underage drinking, unsupervised house parties, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, internet safety, fraud, identity theft, safety of students walking to and from school, mental health issues, and school safety. So I think most of the feedback that we received involves traffic issues and issues relating to substance abuse, mental health, and the safety of children here within the town of Wayland. We did also include a comment box to allow for other issues that people felt were significant. The most common responses were equal treatment of all community members, mental health concerns, and a lot of people felt that many of the issues listed were not significant problems in Wayland. And then getting to some of the demographic responses of the results we received. Most were not of Hispanic, Latin, or Spanish origin. About 19% preferred not to answer. Next question, about 73% of respondents were white or Caucasian. About 21% did not want to answer. About 4.3% were Asian Pacific Islander. About 2% were multi or biracial, and under 1% were Black or African American. How many years have people lived in Wayland? Most people had lived here for a long time, who responded to this survey, with most living here for over 20 years. And most who responded were actually Wayland residents. And lastly, we provided open-ended feedback at the end of the survey for people to provide additional comments. Most expressed support for the Wayland Police Department. A lot wanted to see diversity within the department and within the community itself. Most would like to see public outreach and community events with the department. And there were also questions regarding the police chief search process and what this survey was intended to be used for.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. So I guess I'll open it up now. I said earlier that that we believe, and we typically include some type of community forum, citizen forum in our searches, and of course that's become more challenging over the last year and a half with COVID. So we're forced to sort of do this in many cases virtually. But I'm going to, I guess I'm going to say that in addition to just the citizen input side of this, I think importantly, policing and towns that are looking at policing really are following through with surveys like this. It really is part of a self-examination of how their department is doing, because as we all know, there have been over the last couple of years quite a bit of attention, and it really goes back even farther to the really to the about 10 years ago with the 21st century policing report of what does policing mean in the 21st century? What are the issues? How do we go about making sure that the police, our departments in our municipalities, and are really responsive to the interests of the community? So again, I think these are important forums for everyone to hold. So I guess I'll start with the first question. Many of you have just watched that presentation, heard that presentation from Jordan. You've seen the results. I guess my first question that I'll throw open to people is, what are your thoughts regarding the survey results? Were there any surprises, or did they pretty much match up to your own expectations of what the survey might tell you? And I think Louise, if I recall, this is developed by the Citizen Committee that's focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, social justice for the town of Wayland. So
we used questions that were developed by them, and then they were supplemented by questions developed by the Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice. Bernie, there is a question to you based upon your experience. Given that only 223 persons responded to the survey in a town of 13,500, does that tell you anything?
Actually, I think 223 is a pretty good number to receive on something like this. It's interesting. We're doing a project right now with the town of Norwood for their library for a strategic plan, and I think they're probably they're a little bit larger than the town of Wayland, but they have about the same number of people that are participating in that process. So I think it's a good number. I don't think I wouldn't consider it to be low. It's always better to get more of a response. But I think from a overall general response to surveys like this, that is in line with what we would expect.
So we do have some kind of specific questions about Wayland, and questions that were brought to us by the Justice Advisory group. And so until we get another question, I was just going to answer this question that was emailed to us. How will the below characteristics be considered and evaluated when selecting a new police chief? So one was a desire to treat all racial and ethnic groups equally, especially as it relates to stopping, searching, or employing use of force. Of course, that is a paramount criterion in a police chief. It is a paramount criterion in all police officers. We want to make sure that all racial and ethnic groups are treated equally. The second question had to do with a familiarity with 21st century policing and a desire to embrace a guardian rather than a warrior mindset, especially as it relates to racial minorities. This is a question that was specifically asked of the police chief candidates during their assessment, and no candidate would be selected for final interviews if they were not familiar with 21st century policing, and didn't have a desire to embrace a guardian rather than a warrior mindset, especially as it relates to racial minorities. So I do see we have two questions that have come to us. One question is this forum open to the police chief candidates? Yes. It is open to the police chief candidates, and some may be on or some may be not. They are they may or may not be in the audience. They were told of this forum and can hear what the questions and answers are. There is also a question about when will a decision be made on the police chief, and the person says, I struggle with how long this is taking and struggle even more if it is not Sean Gibbons. So the issue of stability within the department, which is brought up by this question, I'm going to continue reading the question. For those who participated in the survey, positive response was very strong. So we need our chief in place, stability within the department. So focus can go towards the improvements identified by participating residents and the community broadly. So what I do want to say is that immediately Lieutenant Gibbons was promoted to interim chief. He accepted that role. We wanted to make sure that we went through a proper process for hiring and vetting a new police chief. At the same time, and I know it seems like a very long time ago, we were in the middle of COVID-19 and our response. And so stability was paramount to the town. Part of that stability was actually maintaining the leadership within the department and working with all the officers on that COVID-19 response. At this point, we have gone through the preliminary steps for hiring a police chief, and we have interviews scheduled before the end of November. And I anticipate that we will have someone selected and presented to the Board of Selectmen by the middle of December. The Board of Selectmen have 2 meetings or 3 meetings in December, December 6th, December 13th, and December 20th. I think that by the meeting of December 13th, we will have a candidate selected. Bernie, can you see the questions?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yep.
So the question regarding have any of the candidates considered been minority candidates? The answer is yes.
Yeah, and I think that, we're seeing that that's been a goal in many of our searches lately, that there be representation within the pool. So certainly we've been trying to do some proactive recruitment to get out into certain racial groups, as well as to women candidates, to try to really broaden so that the candidate pool is more representative of communities in general. And so that certainly is a goal that many communities are pursuing. With regards to the forum being open to police chief candidates, I think it is a public meeting, and actually I would see that almost as a positive, that they're interested in hearing what people have to say, and maybe reflective of their the way that they would manage moving forward.
So, and one of the things I would add, Bernie, is when we were advertising for the position, we actually sought your advice on where to advertise. And you provided us with a list of organizations that are minority organizations where we did advertise and from which we did receive candidates. So for that, we do thank you.
Sure. I think it might also be important for the people on watching is to that I don't think has yet been described, and we've only I've really only been involved in this process with regards to the one meeting with the committee to talk about some of these issues, and then this forum tonight. But I know that during this process, in addition to doing the aggressive outreach for candidates and evaluating those candidates, there's all that evaluation process has included an assessment center that the town has used, which again is a very appropriate and a progressive way of determining the most qualified candidates for the position, that they're put through various scenarios to identify the strongest candidates based upon a set of skills that a police chief should have.
So I see there's a question about the specific DEI training requirements that we're looking for candidates to have. So there are DEI trainings that police do participate in and that are also available for police chiefs. Those are included on their resumes. And one of the things that I would point out in Wayland, and this was also a question from the Racial Justice Advisory Group, is that we have a unique diversity of religious organizations in Wayland. And so what is another very important question is how police chiefs will approach the protection of religious organizations and how to protect them from threats, from defacements. And that is a question. And so for the police chief candidates who are watching, they will get a preview, but that is one of the important questions in Wayland, where there is such religious diversity. So there's a question to Bernie. How do police departments typically respond to surveys like this? Do they open a dialogue with the community? Do they set up advisory boards? What else might they do?
Well, I think just being proactive and having a survey like this is a positive step. In terms of how they respond to surveys like this, I think they take the information from that and try to learn from that and develop certain programs and initiatives to get out into the community. I think that the last question that was asked, or you responded to, Louise, regarding diversity training is one thing that many departments with surveys like this are doing. I know, again, in many of the searches that we have conducted for police chiefs, this is a question that we put to the candidates of how would you move forward to train and prepare your department to deal with issues of diversity? How would you ensure that that Wayland and the police department are inclusionary in their approach? So surveys like this can really educate police departments, set up training, set up opportunities to reach out to the community and really learn from the community. And again, there is quite a bit of focus appropriately on the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion and social justice. But there are other elements of that survey that are very telling of what the most important issues are facing the town. I don't think we can, I think that communities have been using these surveys for a while to really address or develop strategies to address the real problems that people are feeling. Very commonplace to have one of those issues be traffic. That's something that people look to the police to do, but certainly there are a number of other categories of involvement, and these surveys can educate the departments to that.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question about, does the Wayland Police Department have sufficient financial support from the town to build and implement the broad community engagement programs its residents want? So one of the questions that I would have is, it would be good to get some more feedback on what it is that the residents want. I think that my own view is that whoever comes in as the new police chief would actually engage the community in this type of a discussion in order to determine what the community wants. Community policing is it is a philosophical thought, but when you really think about community policing, it means understanding the community that you're in and providing that community with what it is that it is looking for from its police department. And so for me, one of the very important things that we are looking for in the next police chief is an understanding of that community and a game plan of how that police chief is going to engage the community and actually respond to what the community is looking for. So I think it's a really good question. And one question I have for you, Jordan, is there a way for people to ask questions live, or is it all through the chat? Because I would be interested in hearing some of those thoughts maybe live, and Bernie might be able to respond to some of those as well live. Otherwise, we'll continue with what, the format that we have. There's a question about the number of participants tonight, and I just have that. I believe there are 50 on the Zoom, 51 on the Zoom, and this is also being streamed through Waycam. So there could be a lot of people sitting in their living room watching us.
I think if the other aspect of community policing is that I think is important, and to the viewers watching and participating in this, I have somewhat of some experience in this area as my prior position in municipal government before starting Community Paradigm was as the city manager in the city of Lowell, where community policing really Lowell was at the forefront back in the 1990s of introducing community policing really nationwide. One of the communities that really embraced it was pointed to. And our sense of community policing in Lowell was certainly one of building relationships with the people of the city, the neighborhoods of the city, the various organizations, as well as the individual residents, building those relationships and building a sense of trust and communication. And that communication is two-way. It's providing information to the residents and accepting information from the residents, so that it really is a partnership of with a goal of a safe community and a responsive police department.
Louise, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So it looks like we do have the ability to allow individuals to talk. So if we would like to at some point open it up and allow people to ask you questions directly, not just through the chat, but it does look like we have that opportunity.
Okay, that is great. I do think if people would like to do that, do they just raise their hand?
I think if people want to raise their hand, it will give us the notification. We can call on them, and then I can allow them to speak.
Yep. Otherwise, we can continue chatting. So I had a couple of questions about whether we would be considering a police chief's desire to make data policies, procedures transparent, especially as they relate to racial minorities. So I think that we already published some level of data regarding our police department. Policies and procedures could be public documents to the extent that they don't interfere with police function. And with respect to racial minorities, I know that we did some work in trying to obtain more information. I don't think that right now we maintain that type of data, but that is certainly a discussion that can be had with the next police chief. There's also a question about understanding that new technologies such as face recognition are often inaccurate, especially for minorities, including African Americans, and so should be applied with caution. Obviously, we want a police chief who is well-versed in all of the policing tools. And so to the extent that new technologies are available, we want to make sure that those are used appropriately. And we will have questions regarding technology and the use of technology in the interview process. But yes, I think, an awareness of technology and how to use it is very important in a new chief. So there are still continuing questions about the police chief search. Someone asked, has the assessment center activity happened? Have any of the situations included situations around diversity, racism, harassment that happen in the community or in the department? How is the interview committee involved in this part of the assessment? So the assessment activity already occurred. The interviews, however, have not yet occurred. And there are two separate parts to this question. One of it has to do with policing, harassment in the policing function, and also for a police chief as manager of personnel. And those questions will be addressed as part of the interview process, as part of the interview committee interview process. Another question is about the police department is obviously a well-respected group at this point, and it would seem important to value the input of the current and respected members of the department. This could pull in some important factors that might not be obvious to people outside those who are involved in day-to-day police work. How is this being addressed? So it is true that the views of the existing police department are certainly important. But something that is very interesting about hiring is that we want to make sure that we hire the best candidate for the job, which is exactly why we had an assessment center. Those are veteran police chiefs or other public safety officials who who actually have been helping select police chiefs for other communities and have subject matter knowledge that we might not otherwise have. So of course, the feedback of the police department is important, but where we have a mix of internal and external candidates in this particular instance, I think that relying on an assessment department and an interview committee is the best route. Let's see. Okay, so with respect to how many candidates were interviewed and how many do we have at this point, we received 18 applications. We selected 5 for the assessment center. 1 withdrew, so that 4 candidates made it through the assessment center. We will be interviewing 4 candidates for the police chief position. And with respect to conducting the interviews of the applicants, with the permission of the interview committee, we will be posting who the final interview committee is in the next couple of days on the website.
I think we actually have a couple of people who've raised their hands that if we can maybe include them. Jordan, Sean Donahue?
Yes. So, Sean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow you to talk. So I'm going to allow you now. Sean, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make this short. So, Ms. Miller, thank you for your response. I appreciate your need to open the position up to other candidates. However, from the positive responses on the survey, I would like to say currently, it looks like the police reputation at this time is very good. As you stated, Wayland wanted to keep consistency and identify an interim chief that knew their officers in town. And if we have qualified candidates within our town who know the town people, live in our community, have ties to our schools, I don't see as much benefit in of going outside unless you have cause. for other candidates. Clearly, I don't know where the other candidates for, but if we have candidates within our town that have been part of the system, that know the officers, know the people, know the town, it baffles me why towns go outside unless there's reason to go outside. So that's my 2 cents. That's all I had to say.
Great. And I'll be happy to sort of jump in with that myself. Certainly, I think that a town is, certainly can have a very good department, a number of very good internal candidates, but you need to be able to measure that against something as you go through it, and making it an open search. And we go through this quite a bit with communities at all department head and manager levels, and generally there's a sense, just like in the private sector, that you want to see what's out there, and also recognize the important contributions internal candidates make as well. So particularly in this at this point in time, that type of full self-examination and analysis, I think is valuable. But I appreciate the comments of Mr. Donahue. I think we have Alexia Obar, I'm sorry.
So Alexis, I'm going to click on you and I'm going to allow you to talk. Alexia, can you hear us?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Let's see. Well, now I have 2 comments. Just to piggyback on the last comment, we've recently hired a new superintendent from outside who's brought in multiple employees from the outside world, and they have been hugely positive, wonderful new people with great new ideas and a new set of eyes. So I do totally appreciate and hope that some of the candidates are from outside, because I think you're right that you don't know what you're missing if you don't look outside. So I do hope that even though we have good candidates, that doesn't mean there can't be something better out there. And I think that is part of this process. And also to just add on to that, can you clarify? So you're going to say who's on the committee? Do we also get to know who the 4 candidates are, or even the 5th one also, just so that we know who was in the top running?
So we will publish who the committee is. We will not publish who the candidates were. That was part of what we told candidates at the time that they applied. Not all obviously only one is going to be selected as police chief, and they are currently employed in, different police departments. And so part of our advertisement was that this would not be made public.
Yeah, and if I could jump in on that one as well, Louise. It's interesting. That was a question I just had in the other community I was in just before this meeting, and the board there wanted to make sure that the process that was used guaranteed confidentiality, recognizing that you get your best candidates by ensuring that people are. It is a confidential process. There are many individuals out there that are interested or are very successful in the department or the community that they're in, and they're very happy in those communities. But every now and then there's an opportunity that's really a once in a career for them. And while they may be happy, while they may be very much appreciated by their community, they do feel compelled. And Wayland, I would certainly think, is one of those communities that individuals would be interested in serving as police chief in Wayland. And so you guarantee your best possible candidates by making sure that they're able to do so in a confidential way, just as people in other sectors can apply for jobs without their employer knowing that.
I guess I can see that point of view, but also that has not been true of other major municipal jobs that we have. So I guess I'm not sure why, in a time where transparency is so important, it just seems a little odd.
It's the only positions, and I don't know all the history of Wayland, of what positions may have occurred. But generally, it's only when there's a board that's appointing, because they have to do their interviews in a public process. So, for instance, a town administrator is done through a public process. So the Board of Selectmen or Select Board needs to know the people they're going to be interviewing, and that does become public. Likewise, the school superintendent or other positions that report to an elected board. Again, the goal here is to get the best candidate, and that's how you go about doing that.
And on the idea of community policing and transparency and getting to know a community, we have some things that are a bit not standardized very well. Things like, do we have a police blotter? Do we not? Who gets on it? Who doesn't get on it? Things like that. Will those kind of things be discussed? Like
So
there
I'm
are-
not exactly sure what you mean. We
We
do,
sometimes have a police blotter and sometimes we don't. So sometimes you can Google events that happen in town and sometimes they don't get written up.
no, we have online, we publish the police blotter. It is available on the website. So I'm not sure. I will certainly look into whether or not it is always available on the website, but last that I knew, it is on the website.
I would double.
Yep, I will double check that.
I think we have a
I
question
think we have other questions.
All right,
Bernie.
from Melissa.
All right, Melissa, you are on.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm really enjoying it. And I am a 46-year-old mom of 2 boys and have been involved in some of the programs that the police department has offered and have enjoyed them immensely. And I'm just curious, and I guess this is a sort of a granular grassroots level question, but some of those, the survey results, it seemed like people were saying there should be more programs and more involvement with the community. And I was asking about the budget for the town and if the town supports those kinds, because I know those kinds of programs are expensive and they take time away from the officers who are working to do the programs that they do. But I am just curious a little bit more about the town financial support to the department and how going forward, how that can support the kind of department that long-term can really get involved in the community on a granular level and offer, we have a lot of programs for the kids at the high school. We have programs for citizens to do programs to get involved with the police department and the fire department. So I'm just curious more about how the town supports the department financially and how they're able to grow the department. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Louise?
Yeah, sure. So with respect to the budget, I think right now we are supporting fully the budget of the police department. I agree with you that as new initiatives come on, then we should provide the financing for those new initiatives. We are very lucky right now in the town of Wayland that we have officers who not only work on, as police officers for the town, but also generously provide their time. We had a couple of officers work with us on human rights and diversity issues. They have worked with the community. And so I think that I would look to the next police chief to really engage the community. And we will fight for whatever it is that will be required. I don't know what else, how else to answer that question. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have Doug Leard. Doug, can you
Yep.
hear us?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be brief. I kind of want to second, reinforce what Sean had said, that, that looking at those statistics, Wayland police, people in Wayland seem to be very proud and proud of what the Wayland Police Department has done and is doing now. And my big concern is that, searching outside of the department, you tend to, I think, I understand you need to get a list of candidates to interview, but my concern is that, if you start going outside of town, I think you destroy some of the morale and the ability for people, for officers to want to study and want to do work in the town, because if they feel that, well, the chief's job comes up and they're going to go search and go outside of town, I think it destroys some of that morale. And I think that, Wayland Police has done a great job. And I think, Chief Gibbons lives in town. And, one thing that I really like is that when he goes to bed at night, he puts his head in the pillow, and he puts his head in the pillow in town. He knows the town. He lives in the town. And I just think that has so much bearing in this. And he knows the people, he knows the businesses. And I just hope that, and to the point that Alexi made about, we hire good people, and, and she'd like to see that process continue. We do hire good people, but I've also seen us hire good people, and a few years later, those people are gone for whatever reason. They take jobs somewhere else. So now that whole process has to begin again. So I think a lot has to be said for selecting from within the department, and assuming that you've got qualified candidates. And I personally believe that that's my personal opinion, but I think Sean Gibbons is the qualified candidate. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Jeff.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeff Kurtz. I appreciate the commentary around Sean Gibbons having experience and others having experience in town. But I also appreciate the perspective that we can compare his performance with other potential candidates. And he definitely has an advantage, but it'll be nice to see others that come in with the confidence that they can do a similar job and help our community. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing that. I'd also, we're talking a lot about the community conversations with the police, and I'd be interested, maybe there's a way to do a survey of the attendance to see if anybody would like to continue the conversation and meet with the new chief when he's hired or she's hired, to kind of continue, following through on some of the things that came up in this conversation.
Great. I think that's certainly, I think that when you bring in a new police chief, again, more commonplace now than it was years ago, is to have those introductory meetings in the community to continue that dialogue that follows up on the comments that people are making tonight. So I think that, but obviously I'll defer to the town as how that takes place, but it is pretty commonplace to have that now.
Yes.
So could we raise our hands if we're interested in kind of continuing conversations, and maybe
if people raise their hands, Jeff, we'll think everybody wants to speak, and we'll start.
But I think we have all of your email addresses. Is that right, Jordan? Okay. Yeah. So we have all of the email addresses of the people who joined here. And we can certainly send a follow-up email.
That'd be great.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. I think we have, okay, I think we've heard from Alexia. Melissa and Doug already. Is anybody else interested in weighing in on their thoughts regarding the Wayland Police Department and the selection of a new police chief and policing in general within the town? What you think the major issues are that are facing the town in that area? Jonathan Smith.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Just to piggyback on what Doug had said, I think Chief Gibbons has done an incredible job in the town. And frankly, with the investment that he and his family have in the town, unless there is something in his review that would speak against him being chief, I don't see any reason to look elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay. Let's see. All right. I guess we can, anybody else that wants to weigh in here? Jerry Reed. Hey, Jerry.
Can you hear me, Bernie?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I just want to tag on as well to what the others have said and support Sean Gibbons as chief. He's done an amazing job. Took over right during a global pandemic and led us to one of the safest towns in the world, actually, if you believe it or not. So I support Sean Gibbons as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jerry. I feel like a talk show host. Let's see. It's a little bit different doing this on Zoom than it is when you're in a room. So, Adam.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for conducting this. Greatly appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay. I thought I saw another new name here. Pamela Bryant.
Hi there.
Hey.
I just had a brief question, comment. I do also strongly support Sean in his bid for chief. I think that he has shown immense support for the town in going through a pandemic. In the last 5 years, we've had a, murder that's taken place and how everything's been handled. And lots of other unusual circumstances in the last 15, 18 months that he has shown great leadership for us and for the town. But also, just on a side note, I also am curious, will we have the same type of forum survey and conversation when it comes to be time to select the new town manager? Will that be also open to public input?
Well, I obviously that will be up to the town, but I do have some knowledge of how this was done when Louise was hired. And yes, there wasn't a survey. There was actually an in-person community forum that was held at the I believe it was the senior center, which is at the back of the town hall. And I believe there were probably about 30 people in attendance.
Okay, but now that we're changing from a forum of town administrator to town manager.
So I think that question is probably better addressed to the Board of Selectmen rather than to me in this group.
Okay, well, I just want to be, hope that we all have input, so that the candidates that are, it's not just going to be an automatic shoe-in, that it's just going to be open to the candidates. So we'll see what happens. But I do think that Sean is definitely a leader that this town needs and supports the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I think Dwayne is up next.
I'm sorry, I joined a little bit late, so if this has already been gone through, please I'll look at the video later. But I'm unclear what the procedure, I've dealt with Sean, he does seem like a nice person. But I do, applaud Louise for kind of saying, hey, let's just open it up. We don't, I've been in the town for a little bit. We don't have that many police chiefs. Hopefully we don't. It's kind of nice to have a consistent person in that position. So as much as I like Sean, I think it's important we kind of open up at least a little bit. But I don't really know Sean too well. Some of these people must obviously know him better than I do. Is there, will there be, when there's a few leading candidates picked, will they kind of come in and speak to the town, or how will that go forward from the selection procedure? Will it just be this forum and then someone will propose a police chief to the Board of Selectmen, or will there be kind of steps along the way to understand how that person fits in with what the town wants to happen?
Sure. Louise, would you like to describe the process from here? Dwayne, I don't know where you came in exactly, but we were discussing the number of candidates. I think there were 18 people. That was narrowed down to, based upon the qualifications, to a number that went through an assessment center with a number of simulations that were conducted and exercises. That narrowed it down to 5 people, one of whom has withdrawn. So it's down to 4 now. And Louise, can you describe the interview process from here?
So there will be an interview process for the 4 candidates, which include both town staff and members of the community. And the best candidate will be recommended to the Board of Selectmen. It is a town administrator appointment with ratification to the Board of Selectmen. And I anticipate that this will occur by mid-December. Board of Selectmen have meetings on December 6th and December 13th. And I anticipate that that will be done by the December 13th meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Just by way of process, I think that, Dwayne, you make a good point. And again, there is citizen involvement in serving on the committee to help narrow that field down to the candidates that will be presented to the board. Okay. I think we have the next name I see up here that's new is Chris Alexov.
Thanks, Bernie. I was just first, I would say I like Louise. I support Louise. I think she should stay our town manager. Second, can you better describe the process that narrowed it down from 18 to 5? What the criteria was? Kind of how we've talked about it kind of on the macro level, but what were how was that decision made? If you have any insight into that, I would appreciate it.
Yep. So on the micro level, we were looking for a number of different characteristics. So first of all, we were interested in candidates who had knowledge of Massachusetts laws, Massachusetts policing. We had a few candidates who were from out of state. And while I do understand that previously the town of Wayland had out of state candidates and may even have hired police chiefs who were from out of state, we thought it was very important right now with Massachusetts reform to understand what Massachusetts requires of its police departments and its police chiefs. In looking specifically at resumes, we looked at the size of the departments that the police chiefs were currently working in. We looked at the number of police officers that a particular person was supervising. And we looked at what some of the other activities, not necessarily within police, but also outside of police, that they participated in. We looked at whether they were initiators within their own communities. Did they start policing community programs? Those were all very important characteristics. Finally, we were looking for someone who would be able to both communicate and understand the Wayland community. And so we were looking at police departments where there may be more one-on-one interaction with the community. Rather than and again, I think that goes maybe to size, but also philosophy of some of the community departments. So that is how we narrowed it from the 18 initial candidates to the ones that we were looking for. We did evaluate the cover letters, it is important that a police chief be able to articulate directly and succinctly what they stand for. Not all of the applicants were able to do that. So I hope that answers your
makes a lot of
initial
sense.
question.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Jack Carr.
Yes, hi. My family and I are relatively new to the town. So this process was great. We've learned a lot just listening. It sounds like Sean Gibbons is not only a longtime officer, but he's a resident also. And that's huge. I think that's his investment in the town is not just from a career perspective, but he's got his family living here. So, and I've also noticed he's very accessible. He's active in the town, and I hope the search process confirms this. The search process is, it sounds like it's very well done. It'll only confirm what I would guess the other candidates have big shoes to fill. He's very involved, and it's good to see. So thank you for having the meeting.
Thank you, Jack. Judy Ling. Oh, Judy?
Judy, could you please unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that. First of all, I really want to say thank you for having this forum and having the townspeople be able to participate in this manner. It's really wonderful. I would like to ask if there will be another opportunity, given there are so many conflicts tonight, and a lot of people I know would be interested in asking questions if they had a chance. So that is one question. And then the other question is whether or not there's any plans besides the police chief position. Are there other police officer positions opening? And given the town has a 14% Asian population, whether there's any consideration for hiring in a more diverse manner. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Judy. Louise, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so with respect to other forums, I actually think that we should continue having forums on many different topics, including policing. So yes, there will be other opportunities to ask questions and to provide feedback. With respect to diversity, we do advertise and recruit. And yes, there will be opportunities for new hires within the police department. And I would be more than happy if you could provide us with either referrals, or perhaps we have overlooked someplace where we should be advertising for new police recruits. We do send them to Police Academy. So yes, obviously we are open, and we'll have the new police chief work on that, definitely.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. Anyone else? Carol Martin. Hey, Carol.
I don't know how I got called on. I didn't raise my hand. Apparently,
Oh.
sorry. Since I'm here, thank you very much. It's been very informative, and I appreciate listening to all the different perspectives and gathering even more information, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Be careful. Don't go to any auctions where you might accidentally raise your hand.
Good point.
Thank you, Carol.
So Bernie, someone wrote a question and I accidentally said I would answer it live.
Okay.
And so now I can't figure out how to go back and not answer it live. But so someone asked about the candidates and whether when they were when we winnowed them down to a fewer number, did we speak to any of them, or did we just do it based on resume? And the answer is the first cut was resumes, but there are certain candidates who were reached out to for follow-up.
Okay.
Yes, for follow-up, if not just the 5.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Do we have anyone else that wants to speak? I think we have a number of people that raised their hand and did speak that still have their hands up. They haven't taken their hands down. So, okay. Doug, are you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set. Sorry, I'll get rid of it.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Great. Thank you, Doug.
Okay.
Let's see. Is there another question that's come through? All right. Anybody else that wants to weigh in with questions or comments? I think this has been great that so many people have participated in this. So, back when we used to do this, again, in person, we didn't always get such a large number. I won't name the communities, but we would have these forums. Wayland was not one of them. Wayland, as I said, had about 30 people come to a forum that we had there 2 or 3 years ago. But other communities, you get 5 or 6 people that show up. So it's great to see over 50 people that participated. Mary Ann.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for having this forum. So I just wanted to just raise the issue about domestic violence because it is such a huge problem in our culture, and with 1 in 4 women suffering from domestic abuse, and men also suffer from domestic abuse. But has this been raised as a question with the candidates? And are there any other thoughts about either that they may have suggested about how their departments work on this important area, or whether there was any additional information gleaned on this issue?
Yeah, I don't know, Marianne, if there was a question on that, but one of the purposes of tonight's forum, is to gather that type of the issues that people are concerned about, that they want to hear, that they want to make sure that are asked of the candidates. So I would think that would probably be a question that would be put to the candidates in the interview process. So thank you for those thoughts.
And I would add that our Youth and Family Services Department does work on domestic violence, and we do have a representative of the police department on that committee. And in addition to that, I know that the Human Rights, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee has a very strong interest in that particular issue. So we would expect to work closely with them as well.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, as I said, this has been a great dialogue, I think. I've certainly been impressed with the feedback that the townspeople have given. Oh, Catherine Westcott. Catherine Gardner Westcott.
Thank you. As long as you're gathering information or questions about policing in general, it seems to me that traffic is getting heavier and heavier as it sails through Wayland to as people are commuting to and from work. And I'm not sure who else in town works on the traffic population plans and watching how they go through, but I would assume that the police are, I know in other towns, police are often in charge of traffic lights and traffic turn signals and things like that. And so I would hope that our new candidate would be also interested in the traffic patterns and how to alleviate some of the problems that they cause. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Again, another topic for discussion with the candidates, so thank you. Okay. All right. Somebody else, anybody else? Okay. Well, again, thank you all for your feedback. We actually, Community Paradigm does have someone on the call here along with me that will be preparing some a summary of the comments received. We'll get that off to the town, and again, that will help the committee and the board as they go through the final part of this process. So again, I want to thank everyone for participating, and I'll turn it. I guess at this point, I'll turn it back over to you, Louise.
Absolutely. I just want to thank everyone for participating, and we did record this, so if anybody wants to watch it on rerun, it will be available. And it was also streamed live through Waycam and on YouTube. So if anybody has any other questions, please email us. There's also an Ask the TA area on the town website. So, if you have questions, please send them along. And I'm sure we will be speaking again. I myself really enjoyed hearing the feedback and look forward to hearing from everyone in the future. And again, thank you, Bernie, so much for your expertise and help in this process.
Well, thank you. Great work on the survey, and appreciate the opportunity to help out. All right. Okay. Good night, everyone.